Snaps good, holds good, kick on the way by Conradi, end over end, and it is good! Kyle Conradi hit a 54-yard field goal, and Iowa State leads it 20-19! Oh my goodness!
What's up, everybody, and welcome back into the Iowa State Fan Perspective here at Play the Fight Song College Football Show. We appreciate you guys tuning in tonight to another summer series, a different series that we're going to do. As you can see, I've got my right-hand man back. We're not doing some team previews tonight because we're going to talk about our team. We're going to talk about the Iowa State Cyclones as we are one more month away, as Justin says down at the bottom, and we're 51 days away till Ireland. So we've had a lot of great episodes over the summer, but I think it is time to talk about this roster. The transfer portal is finally closed. I think we really have a good look at what this depth chart could look like heading into fall camp. So we have a ton to get to tonight, and we're going to start with the position breakdown of the tight ends, wide receivers, and maybe we'll throw one more position in, and we'll see where this episode goes. Justin, great to have you back tonight. I appreciate you tuning in and helping us get through this another summer episode. How are we doing?
Doing good. Been keeping up with your team previews with the other teams, but enjoying that. Now that July is finally here, July 1st today on the day we're recording this, who knows when you'll be out there listening, but now it's just July. I don't know. It's just like a switch flipped for me, and I'm ready for football season. I don't know about you.
The NBA finals are done. Is that your, everybody's got a switch. Although here at Play the Fight Song, we like to say, you know, me, Cam, and JP, our switch never gets turned off, but we'd be lying if there wasn't a switch. Some people, like for me, it's kind of like, I would say after the Masters, like after spring. Now, I'm really into the summer, but for you, it's got to be probably the NBA finals is when you turn the corner.
Yeah, for sure. NBA finals, NBA draft, and even a little bit of NBA free agency. I consume a disgusting amount of sports content, whatever season it's in. So I kind of I still pay attention to everything, obviously, but I go all in on whatever's in season. And now it's football up on deck, so we're all ready to go over here.
I don't know how Play the Fight Song branches out into the NBA market.
I don't know if there's a crossover there.
I don't see one at the moment, but if this college football thing doesn't work out, I guess me and you could do it, and I'll let you kind of be the main host of that.
Maybe we'll just start talking college basketball. I feel like there's probably a market in there too.
I know our guys at
we could have some good college basketball discussions.
If you haven't tuned in our Kansas State preview last night, go and check it out after this episode. There are guys at Cocaine Willie podcast joined us. Yeah, I said that right, Cocaine Willie. But those guys were awesome. Those guys were a ton of fun, and they wanted to bring up like TJ's scheduling issues, which was kind of bizarre because I think Iowa State might have the toughest non-conference schedule in the country going into next year. Not to get too far on a college basketball tangent, but they were kind of taking a shot at it as like play all the crappy teams, beat them by 100 and flip our metrics. I didn't want to get into it too much.
Sounds like their coach. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, we do appreciate those guys jumping on. If you guys haven't checked those out yet, we got BYU, we have Colorado, we have Kansas State, and we have Cincinnati up on your feeds for the Get to Know the Opponent summer series that I'm doing, where I'm bringing on other fans and bringing their perspectives of their respected teams going into 2025. We still have, I think, 4 or 5 more to go, and we're going to get those out there for you guys for the rest of the summer. But I'm glad to bring on Justin back because I'm as fun as I was having with those guys. I'm looking forward to just talking strictly the Cyclones. Before we get into all that, got to shout out our partners, No Rivals, shopnorivals.com. This might be the first episode Justin and I have done since they have released the Iowa State collection. We don't have them yet to kind of show off our beautiful heads, but we will get those very soon for you guys. Go and check them out. They just released another edition, the Alma Mater edition, where they threw the football helmet on the side, the big football helmet. I kind of like them. It's something different. They got about 4 or 5, 6 different styles. Use the code PTFS. August is almost here. We're going to be back in Jack Trice Stadium. It's going to be hot in September. You're going to need a hat. Use the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping on your new Iowa State No Rivals hats. Hey, I promised, didn't I?
We've been promising for a while.
I was promising, and they came through for us. So we do appreciate Nick and those guys over at No Rivals. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. We are less than 50 subscribers until that beautiful 1,000 number. And of course, we're not going to stop there, but we've been saying that we need 1,000. We need 1,000 by Ireland.
One subscriber a day.
One subscriber a day. So if you're new to the channel, if you're a Cyclone fan, we've got you covered for all your content heading into the season. So appreciate you guys. All right. Justin, where do we want to start? We wanted to do this series. I don't know how many we're going to do, but we wanted to break down position groups for this Iowa State football team because I think we have a pretty talented football team heading into 2025. I think the numbers and the metrics would speak for itself. And we might as well start off with a couple of the groups that I think are the most interesting. I think there's a very big high ceiling. If everything goes south, could be a low floor too. And I think that's where we're going to answer some of those questions tonight. I want to start off first with the tight ends, and then we will get to the receivers. The tight end position. Justin, when you think of the tight ends, first glance heading into 2025, like where is your confidence level with the group?
I don't know, I guess, or I'd say where my confidence level is, but where my projection level for them is. Obviously, we've got Bramer and Burkle both coming back from last season. Burkle kind of had the breakout year between the two of them. Bramer had the better freshman year, but a lot of expectations on Bramer, I know, especially between us two, but just had a difficult time staying healthy last season. But if you're going to go ahead and tell me that these two are both going to play, I don't know, let's say if they're both going to play 10 games next year, the sky's the limit for those two.
And not only do we get those two, let's break down the room in general quick, a quick overview. Who do you lose? We'll go through that first. You lose Steve-O Klotz, kind of, not even really a true tight end, but not really a tight end to this offense. He was more like your new school fullback is how I would describe him. Still super, super important. I think finding somebody to replace him is going to be a big question for the season. But as far as like your receiver tight ends, you got all your guys back. You return Gabe Burkle, who did stand out last year after Benjamin Bramer kind of went down with injury, with 26 receptions, 296 yards. He had a really, really good game to finish off the 2024 season in that bowl game. He was fantastic versus Miami. Then, of course, as you see here on the YouTube, you get Benjamin Bramer back, hopefully fully healthy, 10 catches, 179 yards last season. And then you get Tyler Moore back, another guy you hope is going to be fully healthy heading into 2025. 6 catches, 60 yards last year. And then you get some younger guys who names to look out for. You got Trip Walsh, the redshirt sophomore, and then Cooper Alexander, the redshirt freshman from the state of Oklahoma. And then I guess we have to mention it too. I believe Kai Black is now moved over to tight end. I think that it's either one or the other. He's now flipped. I believe he's now a tight end just because he's had issues. I think it was like with weight. He just had a hard time keeping off the weight, but he's a super good athlete, and I think he can be utilized at that position.
He's a big boy too. He's 6'4" himself. 6'4", correct me if I'm wrong, would be the smallest tight end in our tight end room. We have a massive tight end room. We got Bramer at 6'7", Burkle 6'6", Moore's listed at 6'5". I think Tripp is listed at 6'6" as well. Mm-hmm. Just a really big group of guys.
Justin, I ask you, like, obviously Taylor Mauser, second-year offensive coordinator, first year was something that it was really at times kind of looked a little bit repetitive, but for the most part, I thought he did a really nice job. And I think it was really refreshing to the eyes of Cyclone football fans, just with the tempo was pushed up. They still love their tight ends, but I thought the tempo was pushed. Obviously with Nolan Higgins, you were able to air it out a ton more and use your receivers. But now what's in store for 2025? Obviously you get back quarterback Rocco Becht. We will get to the receivers in just a minute, but that leaves in question, like, does a tight end lead this team in receiving? Do you envision going back to your Charlie Kohler, Chase Allen, Dylan Sainer days? Is like this tight end group, could that remind you of that?
I think across the board, they could have similar production. Obviously, like I said, we haven't seen a full season out of either of these guys yet. Last year, Burkle finished the year with what was it, 296 yards.
Yep.
He had 283 yards in the last 7 games. So
Mhm.
he really didn't do anything for the first like 5 or 6. And then it was the back half of the season where he really started to come on. And I'm glad that you brought up Mauser there, because I was one of those people that kind of had my reservations about how repetitive the offense was going. But as I went back and looked at it, I don't really think it was more of like the offensive scheme that was repetitive, where I think he was a new offensive coordinator, first year for him, and he was really just trying to find the hot hands. And obviously, we had Higgins and Knoll, 2 second-round and third-round picks in the draft. Like, obviously, you're going to rely on those guys. And I think that kind of shows it shows in Burkle's stats as well towards the back half of the year. That's why he started getting used so much, is because they started to trust him a little more and he was becoming more dependable. So I don't really think it's something scheme wise, but if Bramer can stay on the field, they're going to use him a bunch. If Burkle can pick up where he picked up or ended last year, they're going to use him a bunch too.
I really think even Charlie Kohler was really, really good. But I think the combination, and maybe this is a hot take, I think the combination of what could be from Gabe Burkle and Benjamin Bramer could be a better combo than Chase Allen, Charlie Kohler. And now maybe Cyclone fans will get up in arms and saying nobody will be better than those guys. That may be true. Charlie's had a nice little NFL career. Chase didn't really pan out in the NFL as much. But when I look at Ben Bramer and what Gabe Burkle showed the last half of the last season, I don't know if we've had two better receiving tight ends as a pair in this offense. And I think what Taylor Mauser did last year, just in some of the late game adjustments and out of timeout play calls that he made, makes me believe that this ceiling for a Burkle Bramer combination, like I could see, I'd have to go back and look, Justin, and how many receptions Knoll and Higgins had. But I think Bramer and Burkle could both have over 30, 40 catches next year. Now, I really like the receivers, and I'll talk about that later in a second. But I think both of those two could be really, really good. And I think a lot of people are complaining about Rocco. Like, if there's one thing you want to change about Rocco or need to improve on this year, it's the completion percentage. And I think an easy way to increase your completion percentage is being really, really comfortable with your tight ends.
Absolutely. I'm a little nervous about losing Higgins and Knoll. Anybody should be, especially at a program like Iowa State. You lose that kind of talent, it's pretty hard to replace, and it's going to put Rocco in a tough position, especially when we've seen how reliant he was on those two. But having the tight end position, kind of like the quarterback safety blanket, having these two guys, having it be their third year, they're no longer young guys in the system. They've both been there for 2 years to kind of mature their bodies, learn the system, and grow as players and people. I think that's going to be a really big thing for the program as well as just for the offense in general.
Now, when Tyler Moore came into Iowa State as a freshman out of Johnston, I believe, he was kind of seen as a guy who could be a good receiver threat, and he just really hasn't reached his full potential yet. But I think he's put on a ton of weight, and like I think he could be a guy who could step into that Steve-O Klotz role and be an even better receiving option than Klotz was. Like there were a couple of times. Was it last year? Was it the UCF game where Klotz had like that one where he kind of snuck out through the back and he had about a 30, 40 yard touchdown catch? Like I see Tyler Moore being utilized in that way, but like even to a higher degree. I think with some play action stuff and the running backs maybe taking another step next year, I think Tyler Moore could be a guy who could add another receiver option to this group. I think Tyler Moore is really underrated. And I don't know. Guys, this is the fan perspective. We're not going to sit here like we know exactly player personnel, but I would imagine Tyler Moore is your guy to replace Steve-O Klotz this year. And I think that's a super important role in this offense. And I think he could fulfill that role. Is there another guy maybe we should keep an eye out for, or is it quick to assume Moore could be that guy?
I I don't think it could be another guy unless one of the young guys really surprises us, because I don't want to understate how valuable to the offense Steve Oklotz was last year. He was an extremely vital part of the run game. If you go back and watch the tape from last year, we did not have a lot of successful runs that did not involve Steve Oklotz being a lead blocker or being a pivotal part of the run scheme. Like, I'm honestly really worried about that, and worried about us trying to replace that unless we're going to try to scheme things up a little bit, which if we've got two receiving tight ends in Burkle and Bramer on the same field, that could widen the field a little bit, hopefully give us a little easier box to run. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, because although Moore is a very capable receiver, maybe a little more capable than what Klotz was, I think in this offense, that's not really what they're asking of a third tight end or even like a second tight end. They really need him for that run blocking scheme. And if he's put on some weight, and obviously he's been around the system for a long time, Iowa kid, I think that's definitely a guy that we can trust in the system, and we're going to need to for sure.
I think another guy to keep an eye out for is Trip Walsh. I did hear that, I think, on another podcast, that he will probably get time this year, and I think he's more of a spot too, where he's kind of like in the same position as Tyler Moore. Like, they could play that Steve Oklotz role this year as kind of that fullback, new school fullback role. So something to keep an eye out for. I think we spent a good amount of time talking about the tight ends, but I do believe they're going to be so important this year. Justin, quick projected depth chart. Like, I think this one's pretty much, I would assume, in Penn. You go Bramer and Burkle. If you're going like maybe a 12 personnel, maybe Burkle backs up Bramer and they kind of trade place, because Bramer got hurt last year. So maybe this keeps Bramer a little more healthy too. And then you have Tyler Moore starting at that F spot, or however you want to call that fullback role.
Yeah, Burkle's production towards the end of the year was really impressive and really needed in that spot for Iowa State. So I really wouldn't be dismissive about him. I could see him kind of taking over the lead role there too. But like you said, both guys, I think if both guys can end up with 40 catches, that's a great season. And like I said, if they can both stay healthy, play around 11 games, I can easily see them catching 3 to 4 balls a game.
I think a good place to put a cap on this group too is, again, we're not big into the X's and O's and as far as being like a player insight kind of thing, but this group could be very, very important for the success of the running backs this year, and how well the run game could be utilized. I think Carson Hansen had a great year last year. You're losing Jalen Travis. You're maybe putting James Neal back in that tackle spot. You're flipping a couple of things around. I think Brendan Black's going to center. Trevor Burr is going to be moving to guard. So the offensive line has pieces back, but there's going to be a lot of mix and matching. And that's where I think the tight ends need to be super important, because Breece Hall he was fantastic. Like, let's not take away the talent of Breece Hall. But if you took Tom Manning or asked Matt Campbell, like, how important were those 3 tight ends, or even Taylor Mauser for that question, how important were Kohler, Chase, and Sainer to Breece Hall's success running the football? They would say, I would assume they would say it was vital. It was super important.
Yeah, and it's kind of stuff that isn't as glamorous and doesn't get touched on as much. And I think it's going to be not only helpful to the run game, I think they're going to be very helpful to the receiving game or the passing game as well. Because like we're about to touch on with the new receivers, a lot of new faces in there and a lot of unproven production. So having the guys that have been there before be a vital part of the offense is something that I'm definitely planning on.
Let's get to the receivers, shall we? We'll get to the defense another time, but when I look at the receivers, it is the most interesting group of the 2025 Iowa State football team. I don't think there's any question.
It's the most unproven production.
Absolutely. And when we do our shows and we do our previews, go check out our conference previews, by the way, at Play the Fight Song. When we do all of these things and we cover all 136 teams, it is super hard to get into the weeds of like the super important pieces that may be returning that don't have a ton of production the year prior that might have a huge year this year. So I'm saying that when people diminish the fact that you lose Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, and they're like, Iowa State will probably just win 6-7 games this year. They got to replace over almost 2,000 yards of receiving. I get that, and I don't want to diminish the fact of how good those guys were. But there's about, Justin, we'll get to them, 6-7 guys I think could be really, really good. So who do you lose out of this group? I mentioned you lose Higgins, you lose Knoll, you lose Isaiah Alston, who transfers to James Madison. I think he'll start there. I mentioned that in our Sun Belt Conference preview as well. And then Benny Agoye, if you want to say you lost him, he moves over to corner. So about 4 guys you lose out of that room. Who do you get back? You get back Carson Brown, who had over 11 catches for 144 yards last year. You get Eli Green back, who had 10 catches for over 115 yards. You get Brett Eskelson back, who had a catch and saw some playing time, as well as Dominic Overby, the redshirt freshman. And then you get Daniel Jackson, who I am just super, super excited about. Hopefully he can have a full, healthy 2025. And then we'll get to the big-time transfers of Chase Sewell and Xavier Townsend. When you look at this group, Justin, what is the expectation? How do you fill the shoes of Higgins and Knoll? And quite frankly, can you, or should that even be the expectation?
I don't think it should be the expectation because, I mean, I don't want to bash on our own program, but a program like Iowa State, you don't really just replace 2 top or second day draft picks in the NFL. I mean, Higgins and Knoll were vital to the program the last 2 years, and I don't want to diminish anything that they did over their time at Iowa State by like saying it's just next man up, going to replace them. But these guys are definitely capable of still having a really good year. It's something that I was pretty nervous about earlier in the season before I kind of got into the depth and the weeds of who we've got and where they're going to be in the depth chart. But there's definitely a lot of guys in this group, and it's not a joke that there's a lot of potential in this group that as a team production, as a passing offense, I think we could almost have more production next year than we did last season.
And is that from the receivers itself, or are you saying the tight ends including in that?
I think it's the tight ends including that and another year of Rocco, but it also speaks to the potential that some of these receivers have.
Yeah, let's talk about the potential that these receivers have. I do just want to let's address the transfers first, because while we haven't seen it in an Iowa State uniform, I do think that this could be option number 1 and option number 2 for Rocco Becht this year. Chase Sewell, if you see him on your YouTube here, 34 catches last season for 678 yards at Eastern Carolina with 3 scores. He also had 47 catches in 2023. So he's had back-to-back years of proven production, a former Colorado transfer who will see his former team. And it was part of that Coach Prime group that got cut when he brought in his new Louis. So I'm excited to see what Chase can do in the new Big 12 this year. I think he could have a monster year, top 50 transfer. Guys, Iowa State, in the Matt Campbell era, they've brought in no more than 7 or 8 guys through the portal. I think this was their biggest class they've ever had in the transfer portal. And I believe Chase is the highest portal guy they've ever acquired, a top 50 guy who's a 4-star, super, super high on him. Think he could be really, really awesome. And the best part about it is I do believe he has 2 years of eligibility. So while I don't know if he can just automatically replace what Jaden Higgins was last year, guys, remember how long it took Jaden Higgins to get to gel?
I was just going to say that.
In his junior year, you know, he had kind of at the end of the Iowa game, and then you didn't see him in the Ohio game, and then he kind of came on like that TCU game area in 2023. So be patient. I just advise be patient with Chase, but I do think he can come on the scene right away and have a huge impact. And then Xavier Townsend, the transfer from UCF. This was a guy who I don't know if he opted out or just kind of sat out the rest of the year with injury last year, kind of got banged up. The quarterback situation at UCF was just atrocious a year ago. So I don't necessarily blame him in trying to reserve his eligibility. But in 2023, I believe he had over 33 catches. He also had 15 carries for 163 yards. I'm sure Iowa State might use him in that fashion. 325 receiving yards in 2023 and 3 touchdowns. Justin, these two I think could be really huge. And you kind of look at it as like, are they the Noel? Are they the Higgins replacement? No, I don't think so. I think you're going to use Townsend in different ways that you use Jalen Noel. And I just mentioned he had 15 carries running the ball 2 years ago. I think that's something we have never seen out of an Iowa State receiver that could add another dimension that we've never seen in an offense like that. And Taylor Mauser is not one to shy away from being creative and adding different wrinkles like that. And then Chase Sewell, he doesn't have to be Jaden Higgins. We just talked about how important the tight ends could be. If he has 34 catches, I will say if he has 40 catches, 700 yards, 5 touchdowns like he did a year ago, that should be a good. I think that's a great season out of him, right?
Yeah.
That's not a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a different level of football than being in the Big 12, but over the last 2 seasons at ECU, Sewell, or how were you pronouncing it?
I think it's Sewell. I don't
know. You did it 2 different ways, so I just
because I've heard people say it 3 different ways. Like we haven't.
Well, it's July, so I'm going with Sewell until someone tells me I'm wrong. He averaged 20 yards a reception the last 2 years at ECU, so I definitely think we're going to give him opportunities to get the ball. If he can get 40 to 50 catches, that's going to put him somewhere around that 700-yard range, and that's really all we need him to be. I mean, he doesn't need. As a lead receiver, he doesn't have to be the best receiver in the conference, just like we said. He just needs to be somebody that we can rely on and have somebody to go to and somebody who Rocco can trust. The thing is, I do think it's going to take a little bit. Unfortunately, we got 2 really tough games with Iowa and Kansas State, 2 of our first 3 games of the season. So that could be a little shaky, but that's kind of why we have the value of our running backs and our tight ends as well. So this could be a thing where our offense towards the end of the year looks completely different than it does at the beginning of the season, because Mauser's still only in his 2nd year as an offensive coordinator. And like you said, with Townsend, he's got so many different weapons this year and different ways that we can go about it. And someone that I really want to touch on too is Daniel Jackson, because he was poised to have a really good year last year too. And he was definitely going to be that 3rd guy, although we had Eli Green and Alston in there. He was poised to be the 3rd guy. And it wouldn't surprise me if It'd surprise me if he was the leading receiver, but if he was the 2nd leading receiver on the team, that's kind of what I'm envisioning. Just the way Townsend was used at UCF, I kind of think Jackson will probably be more pivotal in the receiving game, and maybe Townsend will be more of a gadget guy, different type of scheme up plays for him, but not somebody who's consistently being targeted in the passing game. And that's just something that I think super under the radar that I'm really excited for personally.
We saw, if you're watching again on the YouTube, we show the picture of Daniel Jackson against Oklahoma State. That was his breakout game a couple of years ago, man. And he's been around the program for a really long time. So whether it's production or whether it's leadership, this is a 5th, 6th year guy you have in this really young wide receiver room. That experience he brings is invaluable. I think that alone could be massive for this group. And I really do think last year, this team missed a wide receiver 3. We saw some guys who we'll touch on in a bit kind of step up a little bit, but I don't think to the degree that Daniel Jackson could have provided. And I think Rocco, we mentioned last year, he did get tunnel vision when it came to Nolan Higgins for good reason, but also at times was why he had his inefficiencies, I think. And Daniel Jackson could have been that option. So I'm really excited to see him. Before I get going, Justin, we will have the Godfather speak on how to pronounce Chase Sewell. See if he plays it here.
Chase Sewell from Humble, Texas.
Sewell. No, Sewell. See, this is why we spent. This is what you do in your summer
practice.
Your summer episode. You practice Sewell. I'm gonna have to go to bed and say that 100 times tonight, I think.
Big 0. Big number 0.
I will say too, though. I think a lot of Iowa State fans who just see like a bird's eye view, they're like, you have to be the Higgins replacement. You've got to be first team all conference.
I mean, that's a pretty natural thing as a fan, but I think that's kind of wishful thinking.
I I just think Iowa State can win 10 games again with him getting 650 yards. I do not think he needs 1,200 yards, 15
Yeah,
touchdowns.
because just like we were saying, I mean, they're not going to rely on two receivers as much as we did last year. And I don't really think that's feasible. And not to steal your line, but we kind of need to address the elephant in the room.
There you
None of
go.
these, Jackson, Townsend, and Chase, none of these guys have played an entire season before in their like entire college career. So expecting all of them to do that this year is pretty much wishful thinking. So having the depth at the position and having other guys step up is going to be critical.
There's still so many other names we haven't even really gotten to. I'll ask you this, Justin. Out of I think the other four outside of those big three that I had highlighted, who's the newcomer to watch out for to emerge, have that breakout season that you think that this offense, you need him to show up to break out for this offense to reach its full potential this year?
Is Eli Green considered a newcomer?
Yeah, no, I would say in that newcomer or just
unproven.
Yeah, unproven bottom four guys. There was that group of like Overby, Eskelson, Brown, Eli Green. That was the puddle I had put together. So
yeah,
I'll let you have the floor.
Which, I mean, for me personally, it's hard for me to kind of project Overly or Eskelson to have breakout seasons when they haven't really proven it yet. Both really good athletes, both bigger players, both second years. So we should see some projection there. So hopefully they step up into bigger roles. But out of those two guys, really the only ones that we've seen are Eli Green and Carson Brown. And while Brown had that big touchdown against Texas Tech, that was kind of like his only moment of the season. And I was, to be honest with you, I was a little disappointed with Eli Green last year. I thought he was going to step up and be that third receiver when Jackson went down. Obviously, no one was too concerned because he hadn't been too proven in 2023, but obviously we were kind of counting on him to make another jump. But Eli Green coming out of North Dakota State, he was like one of the highest Pro Football Focus graded receivers out of the transfer class last year. And I really thought he was going to have a better season than he did. He finished with 10 catches for 115 yards. And I think it was just kind of difficult for him to get his feet wet, moving up from the FCS level to the Big 12, kind of battling Nolan Higgins for touches. And now that there is kind of a wide open wide receiver room for him, it's his second year in the system. I really think he's a guy who could surprise a lot of people and kind of start to show flashes of what people were projecting for him last year.
I love that pick. I think one thing we haven't even mentioned in this room is who's coaching the room. Noah Pauley, one of, if not the best wide receiver coach in college football, got that job interview like Scheelhaus did a few years ago. Takes that job interview with was it the Niners?
Yeah, he had an offense coordinator interview with the Niners this offseason, for those who didn't know.
So clearly very smart mind. And I think the development that the wide receivers have had over year goes unmentioned at times. And you look at Jalen Knowles' jump from his junior to senior year. You look at Jaden Higgins' jump from junior to senior year. There's a couple of other guys that take jumps and that just need time. And maybe Eli Green is just one of those guys. Because you're right, Justin. I was on the same boat. I was so excited when Green first came in. 45 catches, 877 yards his final year at North Dakota State. So it's there. And it's there at the highest level at the FCS. And I know the jump to the Big 12 it's a different level, but maybe now he's finally got his feet under him and he can develop that chemistry with Rocco.
And if he can be half as productive as he was there, if he can go for 30 catches, 400 yards, that's a vital part of this offense. I mean, he definitely could be useful for this Iowa State team.
I 100% agree. Another guy I'd probably mention is I think Carson Brown could be good. I think he'll be good, but Brett Eskelson is name. I don't want to steal it like I'm sitting to practice because I'm not, but I listen to enough podcasts and listen around to where I know that he's been talked about. Like he could step up big time this year. He had that big third down catch. I know it was his only catch of the year, but it was huge. And I think it was against Cincinnati. So I know one catch, you're like, who the hell cares? You know what matters for a true freshman in November? And Matt Campbell throws you in there and goes, yep, you're good. You're good. Go out there and play. And for Rocco to trust that kid, Like that says a lot. So I think Brett could have a giant year as well. Justin, we'll kind of wrap this whole thing up. Is there concern that we just mentioned 7 guys who all could have good years, but there's only one football, unfortunately, if you didn't know that. Like, is the concern that we might not actually have a Jaden Higgins, that we might not have a number 1 guy in the fourth quarter when things get tight and things get tense? Like, do you think we need one, or can this team survive on having just 6, 7 reliable pairs of hands?
I'm not concerned about it because I'm not planning on that. Like I said, I think that's a really big ask. If Chase ends up being as good Jaden Higgins, I'm very confident we're going to win 9 games. Like if that's going to be the case, I don't really think that's going to happen.
Right.
But if it is, like, more power to us. I think the leadership and maturity of Rocco is going to be very key to the offense. And not to bury one of our future podcasts, but we are returning 2 really good running backs.
Mm-hmm.
And we touched on how important we think the tight ends are going to be. We're not asking these receivers to kind of step in and be NFL prospects. I mean, to quote Moneyball, we're going to try to replace those guys in the aggregate. I mean, we just need guys to step up and to know their role. And I think having this offseason, because there is so much open possibility in that room, there's not even one guy who was there last year that we think could step into a bigger role. We're returning, like, out of our receivers, we're returning like 20 catches, 200 yards. Like, That's probably I don't know the exact number, but I would imagine that's the least amount in the conference. And so the room is truly open for all these guys. And I hope this offseason they're really taking advantage of those reps and battling after that. And hopefully that makes them more ready for the season. And hopefully it all makes them ready for when their moment is called, because a lot of these guys are going to have their moment called in the season.
I 100% agree. And then at the end of the day, it's gonna usually just come down to your third year quarterback, who is the one putting in the unseen hours with these guys. And he knows at the end of the day, when things get tight, who he's going to. And that's just the chemistry and the leadership that Rocco Becht has. So I trust whoever he is going to pick as his go-to guy. I trust him. I think he's built that trust as the Iowa State quarterback.
Well, we've seen the chemistry that he has with Bramer on the golf course recently. So maybe
you wanted to get that one in there. How good is he? Is he better than, how bad would they beat us?
I think I'd take us against them. They didn't have their best showing on the video they recorded. Rocco shot a 44, Bramer shot a 47.
Oh, really? Oh, I watched like the first 2 holes, and Bramer, didn't he birdie the first one or something?
Bramer did not handle the pressure. I hope Bramer's round of 9 at Vinker is not a reflection of how his season is about to go. But don't get me wrong, Vinker has more than humbled me multiple times. Difficult course. I think Bramer got like a 9 on hole 9. It was not good.
Wow.
But it was good to see. I love seeing that content of the guys. I'd love to see more content like that of the other players on the team. It's fun. It helps you get to know the guys as people a little bit, and it's just fun to see.
I'm not going to sit here as a man on a podcast and down a guy who's shot a 9 on a hole like I haven't done so myself.
If you're not a scratch golfer, you shouldn't be talking about other bogey golfers. That's me. So I should not be talking.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. You come here at the Iowa State Fan Perspective, you get your daily dose of NBA talk. You get your daily dose of golf talk. And as always, you get the best Cyclone football content around. Justin, before we head out, any last closing thoughts on the tight ends and wide receivers?
Not that I can think of. I think we've covered it pretty well tonight. We've been talking about the 5 deep for about 40 minutes now. And I mean, I think we could keep going if we wanted to. I'm just really pumped for this season and pumped to talk about the other positions too.
This is my last question. I promise.
So I was going to ask you about Mauser too, but I don't know what your question was.
We'll maybe get to that another time, but I know there's uncertainty at the receivers, but we know what we got in the tight ends. But after we talking over this group on a scale of 1 to 10, not like, what is your confidence in the tight end receiver group as a whole heading into 2025?
Confidence as in how much like I trust them, or kind of
Yeah,
what
like I
do
trust
think their production's going to be
I
this year?
trust it. The production's going to be where it kind of was last year in some form or fashion. I think the passing game will still go to another level.
Um, I'd say like a 7. I would say last year was probably about an 8 just because of the high end talent that we had with Higgins and Knoll, but the depth behind them was really low. And we're lucky that
Mhm.
those two played as many games as they did, because we would have been in trouble whenever they weren't on the field. But this year, like we talked about all night, we've got options going into next year, and I expect different guys to step up at different moments. Maybe it won't be as trustworthy at the end of the game, but that's what we got a quarterback for, and that's what football is a team sport for. So I still think they're going to have a good season, but probably not as high end as what we'd expect the last couple of years.
Good stuff. I know when we first pre-recorded, we're like, we'll go 20 minutes and we'll see what happens. But of course, that never happens around here, which is a good thing. Talking over this group kind of, I think, answers some questions, but there's still a lot to be seen. And that's why this anticipation for this 2025 season is as high as it's maybe ever been. So good stuff, Justin. Hopefully, maybe we'll be back next week to preview a new group. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on the receivers or tight ends in general, and let us know what you guys want to see for the rest of the summer going forward. We promise we got content continuing to come out. Keep an eye out for our Get to Know the Opponent series, and Justin and I will continue to break down the position groups as we move along to Ireland. Appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. Before you head out of here, check out our partners at No Rivals. Check out your Iowa State hat at No Rivals. PTFS, free shipping. Use it at the checkout. Get your hats for Jack Trice Stadium kickoffs in September. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Like the video. We are trying to grow this thing. The road to 1,000 is so close, but the journey for this podcast is so far away. All right, that's my corny ending. Appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. We will see you guys probably next week. As always, happy 4th of July from Justin and myself. Go Cyclones.